12 rounds. That's how many .30-06 bullets it took to finally stop old Clubfoot at point-blank range. Most hunters think their rifle is a literal off switch for a predator. They're dead wrong. This 1,600-pound monster didn't just survive the first 10 shots. It kept charging. Today, we are performing a forensic deep dive into 6 cases where the line between hunter and hunted completely dissolved. From the two-toes grizzly that stalked an entire valley for 50 years to the brutal physics of a predatory black bear ambush. This is the truth of the point of no return. The bear fell and did not get up after 4 rifle shots, numerous dog bites, and a final round placed behind its ear in a narrow box canyon in the Alaska range. When Frank GLAZER stretched the hide across the ground, it squared at 10 feet 8 inches, nose to tail nearly 11 feet on the longest axis. What kept Frank from becoming the one who did not walk out was not a margin of superior firepower, but 2 wolf dogs he had adopted on a whim and a hard-won familiarity with terrain that the bear could not escape. The year was 1921, and Frank GLAZER ran the Black Rapids Roadhouse on the old Valdez Trail in the remote Alaska range near Val's. He was a working woodsman, hunting sheep, caribou, and moose that he sold to Alaska Road Commission crews building the Richardson Highway. By early May, with snow retreating from the high country, Frank made a decision to revisit a bear den he had scouted the previous fall. The den sat in a willow stand Frank had identified in autumn by the frost pattern on the branches, breath from the hibernating bear crystallizing nightly on the vegetation above. Temperatures that week were cold, and the snowpack was still deep in the shadows of the canyon. The terrain Frank was moving into was a box canyon, steep walls, loose talus, and ice chutes narrowing to a dead end. Sound carried sharply. Footing was unreliable. With him that morning were the 2 wolf dogs he had adopted months earlier. Yukon, a large, dark animal he had made his lead sled dog, and Red. Both were Victoria land dogs, a local wolf hybrid breed used for pulling sleds. To see why the shooting problem became so difficult, we have to look at what the dogs did the moment the bear appeared. Frank had followed the giant bear's tracks into the canyon, reading the sign correctly. The animal had gone in and could not exit. At approximately 30 feet above Frank's position, the bear had attempted to climb an ice chute and was sliding back down on its hindquarters, dislodging rocks and ice. Frank had a clean angle to the bear's vitals. He raised his .30-06 and fired. The shot struck the shoulder. At that moment, Yukon and Red streaked past Frank and inserted themselves between him and the wounded animal. The bear, now in pain and disoriented, was unable to fix on a single target. The dogs circled, Red moving behind, Yukon drawing attention from the front, while Frank tried to find a shooting lane that did not put either dog in the path of the bullet. What followed was not a clean hunt. It was a running, chaotic engagement through the length of the box canyon. The bear charged, and the dogs reversed direction. Frank's feet slipped from under him on icy rock, and he went down on his back, watching the 3 animals sprint past him at close range. He recovered and repositioned, anticipating that the bear's only exit lane would bring it past him. It did, within arm's reach, close enough for Frank to see the individual hairs on the bear's hide. Frank fired twice more as the bear slowed under the cumulative blood loss from bullet wounds and dog bites. The bear took a final stand, turned to face the dogs, and Frank placed a shot to the ribs. The animal collapsed. A final round behind the ear ended the encounter. Total shots fired from the .30-06, 4 confirmed, plus the coup de grace.
Medical findings and aftermath. To understand how close the margins actually were, we look at what the terrain demanded physically of Frank during the engagement. Frank was not injured in the encounter. The record contains no documented wounds. What the scene does document is a man who fell hard onto his back on rock and ice in the middle of an active engagement, regained his feet, repositioned, and continued engaging. At those temperatures and on that surface, a fall that produced a sprained ankle or a broken wrist would have ended the encounter differently. The bear was not yet mortally wounded when Frank went down. Psychologically, the event left a clear mark. Frank refused to sell the hide for any amount of money and spoke of the dog's role with explicit admiration for the rest of his life. The tactical decision the dogs made, not to flee but to fight, was something Frank described as the reason he survived. The hide was measured carefully. Squared at 10 feet 8 inches, it represents one of the larger brown bear specimens documented from interior Alaska in that era. Incident analysis. Human factors. Frank entered a box canyon after a large, healthy bear with no backup shooter and 2 dogs whose behavior he could not fully control. The canyon geography that gave him a tactical advantage, the bear was cornered, also created a confined engagement space where 3 animals and a single rifleman were in constant proximity. A dog in the bullet's path was a persistent problem throughout the engagement. Effective actions. Frank read the terrain correctly before entering. He understood that a cornered bear has no retreat option, which shaped his positioning. When he went down, he did not fire blindly. He held until he had a lane. He managed trigger discipline under extreme physical and psychological pressure. Practical takeaway. If you are hunting dangerous game in terrain where dogs are working ahead of you, you are accepting a reduced ability to shoot safely. The dogs in this incident almost certainly prevented the bear from focusing on Frank, but they also prevented clean shots for the majority of the engagement. Understand what you are trading before you make that choice. Frank GLAZER survived because he had the ultimate early warning system, his dogs. But what happens when you're hunting alone in the silent Alaskan timber and the predator is the one doing the stalking? HARLEY SIEVENPIPER was about to find out that a brown bear doesn't always roar before it strikes.
When search and rescue expert Don Kledding reached the end of the drag trail, he found half a mile of torn clothing, bone fragments, and blood pressed into the soil of Baranof Island. The physical record of a brown bear hauling a 40-year-old man through the rainforest. HARLEY SIEVENPIPER had been partially consumed and buried under forest debris, his body cached less than 100 yards from where 6 armed men stood searching. The bear was lying on top of him when they arrived. The date was November 4th, 1988. To understand what happened that morning, you have to feel the place first. Baranof Island sits off the southeastern coast of Alaska, near Port Alexander. It is classified as a temperate rainforest. The air on that day was cold and moving, blustery, as witnesses described it. Visibility in the dense coastal undergrowth rarely extends beyond 30 to 40 yards. The forest floor is a compacted mat of wet moss, root systems, and muskeg. Soft ground that absorbs sound, holds track impressions clearly, and slows a running person considerably. HARLEY SIEVENPIPER, 40 years old, was an experienced outdoorsman. He was hunting Sitka black-tailed deer alongside 2 companions, David Trejo from Juneau and James Hendricks from Port Alexander, both in their 30s. The 3 men were physically fit and had mapped out standard hunting protocols before separating. HARLEY walked the beach to gain distance from the group, then pushed several hundred yards into the bush until he located a muskeg opening, a swampy clearing bordered by spruce. He settled against a tree for cover and began using a deer call. His scope cover was removed. His rifle safety was engaged. He was doing everything right. To see why the charge was unavoidable, we have to look at the terrain and the animal's approach vector. The muskeg clearing gave Harley a clear visual field in front of him, but the dense spruce and willow behind him created a wall of cover that the bear used to close the distance without detection. The brown bear, a large adult male, came from behind at a distance of 30 yards when Harley first heard it. At that range, with a bear at full acceleration, there is roughly 1/2 of 1 second before impact. A brown bear in a full charge covers 30 yards in approximately 2 seconds from a standing start. This bear was already moving. The physics of the impact, an animal estimated at well over 600 pounds striking a stationary human from behind, sent Harley immediately onto his back. His eyeglasses and cap left his body on contact. His rifle was driven half deep into the soft muskeg soil. The bear broke Harley's neck within the first seconds of the attack. The cervical fracture would have produced immediate loss of motor function. From that point, Harley could not defend himself. The bear then inflicted extensive trauma to the body. Harley screamed once, audible to his partners several hundred yards away. Then the sounds changed to the bear alone.
Medical findings and aftermath. To understand the full extent of the violence, we turn to the physical evidence documented at the scene and along the drag trail. When Don Clutting arrived as the lead search and rescue expert and trained EMT, there was no medical intervention to perform. The attack had been fatal within moments. The evidence cataloged along the drag trail, bone fragments, tissue, and shredded clothing distributed over approximately half a mile, indicated substantial post-mortem trauma consistent with predatory feeding behavior. The necropsy performed on the bear by Clutting confirmed this. Stomach contents contained tissue belonging to Harley SIEVENPIPER. The bear was not defending territory or reacting to a surprise encounter. It was feeding. The long-term physical toll fell on the survivors. Harley's 2 hunting companions, James Hendricks and David Trejo, followed the drag trail as part of the initial search party. At a particularly graphic point along the trail, both men became visibly overwhelmed and had to turn back. That response, the physical inability to continue, is a documented physiological stress reaction, not a failure of nerve. The psychological effects on all members of the search party are consistent with what trauma literature identifies as an acute stress response: intrusive imagery, disrupted sleep, and persistent hypervigilance in field environments. Don Clutting continued leading the recovery operation through to the final confrontation with the bear. That kind of sustained composure under those conditions is not ordinary. Incident analysis. 2 failures created the conditions for this death. 1 tactical action prevented additional casualties. Human factors. Harley positioned himself with his back to dense cover while using a prey-mimicking deer call. A deer call produces audio signals that activate predatory interest in brown bears, particularly in late fall when caloric needs are at their annual peak. The combination, concealed approach angle, predatory audio stimulus, and stationary target, created an encounter with no viable escape window. Gear factor. A rifle with the safety engaged and a scope cover already removed is correctly staged for hunting, but it was driven into the muskeg on impact and never entered the engagement. What prevented further deaths? Don Clutting's decision to split the search party into 2 units, maintain ridge positioning for 3 of his men, and advance with only a small point element kept the group from converging on the cached body simultaneously. When the bear charged, it closed 70 yards and struck a position 2 steps from the ridgeline. Clutting and his partner absorbed 2 volleys of fire before the bear diverted. Their controlled fire under a moving charge from a distance that gave them almost no margin stopped the attack. Practical takeaway. A deer call does not only attract deer. In high-density bear habitat, especially in late fall, any prey-mimicking call should be used with your back protected and your firearm immediately accessible. safety off when you are actively calling. The environment that makes muskeg ideal for deer hunting also makes it ideal for a bear to approach unseen. SIEVENPIPER was a victim of a sudden, predatory ambush. But our next case involves a bear that didn't just kill once. It hunted men for over 50 years. This is the forensic breakdown of Two Toes, a grizzly that survived every deterrent humans threw at it, until one final, fatal mistake. 3 men died across a span of roughly 50 years. Johnny Graham in 1912, Pat Welsh in 1960, and a backwoods trapper known as Frenchie in 1922, each attacked in a different location in or near the Yellowstone frontier by a grizzly bear missing 3 toes on its front foot. The bear was never confirmed killed. The trap that had been attached to its leg in 1922 turned up approximately a year later, empty, on Slough Creek. After that, Two Toes was not seen again. The area around Crevice Mountain in southwest Montana, near the boundary of Yellowstone National Park in 1912, was a frontier in the most literal sense. The region was still primitive enough that a 63-year-old prospector like Johnny Graham could work a gold claim in relative isolation, using pack horses to move supplies along creekside trails. It was a bright, warm day in May when the first incident in this sequence began, not with an attack, but with a broken leg on a pack horse. Johnny shot her and left the carcass a few yards off the trail. 2 days later, he watched a very large, healthy male grizzly feeding on the remains. The carcass had become a bait site. Johnny devised a plan. To understand why Johnny Graham made a fatal error, we have to look at what he believed he knew and what the sign on the ground actually told him. Johnny set a 60-pound steel bear trap near the carcass. Several days later, the trap was gone. Bear tracks at the site showed an impaired gait. Johnny followed the tracks approximately 200 yards downhill and found the bear, enormous, still alive, wedged between 2 fallen trees with the trap still clamped to its leg. He leveled his rifle and placed 2 shots to the bear's ribs. The bear stopped moving completely. Johnny laid his rifle against a nearby tree. He unsheathed his skinning knife and walked toward the animal. The bear came alive. What followed was rapid and one-sided. The bear tore itself free from the trap, severing 3 toes in the process, and attacked Johnny before he could recover his rifle. The bear bit, clawed, and chewed, but left him alive, then fled the scene. The severed toes and 4-inch claws were the only trophies that remained. Johnny succumbed to his wounds shortly after a passerby found him. In 1960, near Soda Butte Creek, 61-year-old woodsman Pat Welsh was sleeping in camp when a bear raided his supplies. Welsh grabbed pots and pans to drive it off. The bear advanced instead of retreating. He grabbed an axe. The grizzly swatted it from his hands and attacked. His companion used Roman candles to chase the bear away. Pat died within days. The bear, examined afterward, was missing 3 toes. On June 12, 1922, Joseph DeRay, known locally as Frenchie, was checking his trap lines along Slough Creek outside Yellowstone when he found a giant bear in one of his traps. He ran home, told his wife he'd be back by nightfall, took his rifle, and returned. He did not come back. His rifle was found near the trap with bite damage on the barrel and the stock torn in 2. The trap was later found abandoned, minus its occupant.
Medical findings and aftermath. To understand the pattern of injury, we look at what each encounter left behind. Johnny Graham survived the initial attack long enough to be found and to describe the encounter in detail. His wounds were extensive, bites and lacerations consistent with a large bear that had a full range of motion and was not slowed by the trap.
The bear had freed itself before engaging him. Pat Welsh's injuries, sustained in 1960, were described as head-to-toe trauma from biting and clawing. His companion's use of Roman candles, improvised light-based deterrents, interrupted the attack but could not reverse the damage already done. Pat died within days. The psychological dimension of this case extends beyond the individual victims. The communities around Yellowstone were aware of the bear's track signature. The missing toes made identification possible across decades. That knowledge, that the same individual animal was responsible for multiple deaths, created a documented atmosphere of sustained unease throughout the region. Incident analysis. Human failures. 3 fatal errors. Johnny Graham approached a bear he believed he had shot dead without confirming it with a secondary shot from a safe distance. He also set down his rifle before verifying the animal was dead and approached close enough to use a knife. Each of these actions sequentially removed every layer of protection he had. Frenchie's failure was structural. He found a large, trapped bear and went to approach it alone, at close range, without a backup. His rifle's bite damage suggests the bear may have lunged before the shot was possible. Pat Welsh's error was using insufficient deterrence against a bear that had already shown it was not responding normally to human presence. An axe in the hands of a 61-year-old man is not a match for a large grizzly. Practical takeaway: a motionless bear is not a dead bear. Every documented death in this sequence involved a human who acted on an assumption that the animal was neutralized before confirming it with a second shot from distance. If the animal does not respond to a stone thrown from 30 feet away, it is worth another round before you close that distance. Two Toes was a ghost, but Old Clubfoot was a titan. We're moving from a 50-year mystery to a 1,600-pound reality. Most hunters think a deer rifle is enough to stop anything in the woods. This next case proves that against a monster of this size, 12 shots might not even be enough.
When Franklin Manges fired his 12th round into the back of the bear's skull at close range in a willow grove near Grand Mesa, Colorado, the animal finally stopped moving. The hide, when stretched and measured, came in at 8 feet 4 inches squared. The bear weighed approximately 1,600 pounds, a figure that researchers have since described as exceptional for an interior grizzly of any era. Of the 12 rounds that penetrated the hide, only 2 had punched through the fat layer beneath. The year was 1902. The area around Grand Mesa in western Colorado was open ranch and hunting country. Excellent deer and elk habitat, good fishing, and a known grizzly population that had been preying on cattle in the region since at least the 1880s. The bear ranchers, called Old Clubfoot, had earned that name through a prior encounter with a steel trap in 1890, which cost it 3 toes and left a distinctive 2-toed front track that read like a club print in the soil. A small hunting party had come to the area for sport. Franklin Manges, a 61-year-old man described as relatively new to hunting, stayed back at camp while the others went out. He took his .30-30 lever-action deer rifle and walked a nearby trail looking for camp meat. It was a warm day. The conditions were open enough to travel without difficulty. To understand why this engagement lasted as long as it did, we have to look at the physics of what a 1,600-pound animal with inches of fat beneath a thick hide represents as a ballistic problem. Franklin was walking the trail when he heard a loud exhalation behind him. He turned and found a very large grizzly walking toward him, not charging, not vocalizing aggressively, simply moving in his direction at a walking pace. Franklin froze. The bear passed him at roughly 20 yards without engaging. Franklin then made a decision.
he shot it. The report of the .30-30 echoed, and the bear ran. It did not fall. Franklin began trailing the tracks, a mistake with a wounded grizzly, but one he chose to see through. He followed for several miles before crossing a stream. On the far bank, the bear rose from the brush on its hind legs at approximately 100 feet. Franklin fired again. The shot struck the shoulder. He fired a third time. The bear turned and moved into willow cover. Franklin circled the willows. The bear exited at 25 yards and lowered its head. The charge that followed was short and fast. Franklin worked the lever and fired as rapidly as he could, putting rounds into the animal until it fell. The bear ceased movement. Franklin walked back to camp, ate dinner, and organized a recovery party. The next morning, the group hiked to the location he had marked and found no bear. The tracks led approximately 100 yards into a nearby willow grove. The bear was alive. Franklin raised his rifle and fired his 12th round.
Medical findings and aftermath. To understand what old Clubfoot's body tells us about the engagement, we turn to the physical findings documented by the recovery party. Franklin Mangus was not wounded in the attack. The bear's charge at 25 yards was stopped by rapid fire at close range, a combination of adrenaline, mechanical repetition with the lever action, and proximity that made missing difficult. His physical condition after a multi-mile pursuit through mountain terrain, followed by a charged engagement, was not documented. He ate dinner that night and organized a recovery effort the following morning. The hide examination was the most significant finding. 12 bullet impacts were counted across the bear's body, but only 2 rounds had penetrated the fat layer. The .30-30 cartridge, firing a 150-grain bullet at roughly 2,200 feet per second, is a standard deer caliber. Against 1,600 pounds of animal protected by several inches of fat and a thick hide, it was marginally adequate at best. Old Clubfoot's hide was temporarily displayed at public venues across the region, including the World's Fair in St. Louis in 1903, and has remained in the possession of Franklin Mangus's family since the hunt. Incident analysis. Human factor, caliber selection. Franklin was carrying a .30-30 deer rifle. Against a bear of this size, it performed at the edge of its capability. Of 12 rounds, only 2 penetrated the fat layer. The bear absorbed the rest and remained alive, covered ground, and had to be finished at close range the following day. A heavier, more powerful cartridge would likely have ended the engagement sooner. Human factor, shooting a bear in the back. Franklin's first shot was fired at a bear that was walking away from him, showing no active aggression. That decision initiated an hours-long, dangerous pursuit of a wounded animal through rough terrain. Effective action. Franklin did not panic on either charge. He worked the lever action under pressure and placed enough rounds to bring the animal down both times. After the first charge, he walked away uninjured. Practical takeaway. Caliber matters when the target is large. If you are hunting or traveling in grizzly country, a .30-30 is a deer rifle. It will kill a grizzly. 12 rounds prove that. But it will do so slowly and dangerously. Carry the most powerful cartridge you can shoot accurately. We just saw a 1,600-pound grizzly take a dozen rounds to go down. But size isn't the only thing that kills. In our 5th case, we look at a 300-pound black bear in New Jersey. It's the perfect example of how human instinct, the urge to run, can turn a curiosity into a predatory kill drive. Darsh Patel was 22 years old, a final year student at Rutgers University from Edison, New Jersey. He was hiking in the Apshawa Preserve in Passaic County on September 14, 2014, when a black bear selected him from a group of 5 young men and pursued him until he was dead. The bear was a healthy 300-pound, 4-year-old male with no signs of disease or malnutrition. DARSH PATEL was the first fatality from a black bear attack ever recorded in New Jersey. The Apshawa Preserve is 576 acres of forested land in Passaic County near West Milford, New Jersey, close enough to major urban centers that this attack happened within driving distance of New York City. The area carries an estimated 2,400 black bears. Residents report sightings several times a week. It was a bright, sunny September afternoon, high visibility, dry trail conditions, and a park actively used by hikers and birdwatchers. DARSH and 4 friends had driven out for a day hike, a break from studies, fresh air, normal college recreation. They were warned before they started the trail. A couple heading back from their own hike told the group directly. A large black bear had been following them for roughly 10 minutes. The couple urged the young men not to go up. The group discussed it briefly and continued. To see where the encounter shifted from manageable to fatal, we have to look at the moment the group made a single catastrophic decision. The group encountered the bear approximately 300 feet up the trail. It was not charging. It was not vocalizing. It was walking toward them at a slow pace, maintaining eye contact. This is a behavioral signature that wildlife professionals recognize as predatory interest, not a defensive bluff charge, which would be fast and loud. The bear was evaluating. As the bear closed to roughly 100 feet, the group was still intact and moving together. The bear was slightly faster. When it reached approximately 15 feet, someone broke and ran. Then everyone ran in different directions. This is the moment. A predatory animal tracking a group loses targeting cohesion when the group disperses explosively. Flight is the behavioral trigger that confirms prey status. The bear selected one individual, DARSH, and did not deviate from him again. His 4 friends regrouped and watched from a distance, shouting. DARSH slipped on rocks while scrambling uphill and lost a shoe. The bear was close enough that he did not stop to retrieve it. He attempted to climb a small rock formation. The bear followed. Police were called. Officers searched the area for several hours. They found the bear circling DARSH's body, unwilling to leave. A 30-minute standoff followed. The bear was shot in the shoulder and jaw area and died immediately. The necropsy found clothing, tissue, and hair in the stomach contents. The attack had been predatory from the first moment of approach.
Medical findings and aftermath. To understand the clinical reality of what happened, we look to the necropsy findings and the physical record at the scene. The forensic findings were unambiguous. Stomach contents, tissue, and hair under the claws, and bite marks on DARSH's cell phone confirmed active predation. The bear was not malnourished. It was healthy and well-fed. This was not a food-stressed animal acting out of desperation. It was a young male that had apparently lost its aversion to human beings and had identified the group as prey after following the prior couple for 10 minutes earlier that day. The 4 surviving members of the group were physically uninjured. The psychological aftermath, witnessing a peer be killed at close range while being unable to intervene effectively, is consistent with what clinicians describe as acute traumatic stress, with a high probability of long-term intrusive symptoms and altered threat assessment responses in natural environments. DARSH Patel's family was informed that the authorities concluded the young man did nothing to provoke the attack. That finding, while accurate in the legal and behavioral sense, does not address the tactical choices that foreclosed their options. Incident analysis. Critical error, running. The single most consequential decision made in this encounter was breaking and running when the bear closed to 15 feet. Before that moment, the bear had not committed to an attack. It was testing. A group of 5 people standing together, making noise and holding their ground, presents a very different stimulus than 5 individuals fleeing in separate directions. Prior warning dismissed. The couple who warned the group provided specific current intelligence. The bear had been following people on this trail for at least 10 minutes. That is not a routine wildlife sighting. That is a bear engaged in extended predatory reconnaissance. The decision to continue on the trail after that warning removed all the margin the group had. No deterrence. None of the 5 hikers carried bear spray. In an area with an estimated 2,400 black bears and documented regular sightings, bear spray is a minimal, low-cost precaution. At 15 feet, the range at which the group broke, bear spray deployed into a headwind would have been effective. Practical takeaway. When a bear follows you at a walk without vocalizing, it is not confused or curious. Stand your ground as a group. Make noise. Do not run. If you are hiking in confirmed high-density bear habitat, carry bear spray and know how to use it. The warning the group received before stepping onto the trail was accurate and specific. Heeding it would have cost them one afternoon hike. A single predatory strike is tragic, but our final case is a full-scale massacre. In the mountains of Japan, a wounded Ussuri brown bear didn't just kill for food. It went on a 3-day rampage that claimed 6 lives. This is the Kesakaki incident, and it's the most brutal proof that a wounded bear is the most dangerous thing on Earth.
When hunter Mr. Yamamoto fired 2 shots from approximately 60 feet into the sleeping bear on Hokkaido, Japan, one to the heart, one to the head, the animal that had killed multiple people across 3 days in December 1915 finally stopped. The necropsy documented a bear standing 8 feet 9 inches in height and weighing 749 pounds. Tissue from his victims was found in the stomach. The skull and hide were kept as artifacts of the event and eventually lost. Nothing of Kesakake remains. Hokkaido is the northernmost of Japan's major islands, a cold, heavily forested frontier in 1915, still being settled by farming families pushing into terrain that had not been managed by humans for long. The bear species present on Hokkaido is the Ussuri brown bear, classified as Ursus arctos lasiotus, also known locally as the black grizzly. It is one of the larger brown bear subspecies, comparable in size to North American populations, and is documented in wildlife literature as having a particularly high rate of predatory aggression toward humans relative to other regional brown bear populations. The Ikeda family farm is where the incident sequence began in early winter of 1915. A large bear raided the family's corn supply in the barn, panicking the family's horse. Mr. Ikeda organized volunteers and they shot the bear, wounding it. A snowstorm interrupted the tracking effort. The men assumed the bear had gone to the mountain to die. It had not. To understand how one wounded bear produced casualties across multiple households and a multi-day search operation, we have to track the sequence of decisions that kept the animal operational. On December 9, 1915, the Oda family was at home mid-morning when the bear entered through the door. The family matriarch, Abe Mayu, was present with an infant named Mikio. The bear entered, backed Mayu across the room, and killed the infant. Mayu fought with firewood and whatever she could reach. Additional deaths and injuries followed at the farm in the next few hours. The community organized a defensive barricade and stood guard that night. One of the guards observed a shadow moving across the river. He called out. When there was no response, the guards fired. The shadow retreated. In the morning, giant bear tracks and blood in the snow confirmed they had wounded Kesakake a second time. The bear was now injured from at least 2 separate engagements and had not been stopped by either. The decision to begin tracking immediately to beat the incoming snowstorm was the correct call. Mr. Yamamoto advanced alone to within approximately 60 feet of the sleeping bear and fired twice. The placement was precise, heart and head. The bear did not move again.
Medical findings and aftermath. To understand what made Kesakake so difficult to stop, despite being wounded multiple times, we turn to the necropsy findings. The bear was 8 feet 9 inches in height and 749 pounds, a large male in prime condition. The stomach contents contained tissue from his victims, confirming active predation rather than defensive behavior. He had been wounded at least twice before the fatal engagement, once by the initial volunteer party and once by the guards at the river, and had remained mobile and capable of active hunting through both injuries. The survivors of the household attacks sustained severe injuries. Some died from wounds in the days following. The community trauma extended beyond the immediate casualties. As a documented result of this attack sequence, the settlement in that area was eventually abandoned. Experts believe the bear had woken prematurely from hibernation due to food scarcity caused by increasing human settlement in its range, a displacement of the bear's natural food sources that brought it into persistent contact with the farming community. The artifacts, skull and hide, were preserved and displayed for decades before being lost. Their disappearance means that physical verification of the documented measurements is no longer possible. Incident analysis, systemic failure, inadequate follow-through on the initial wounding. The first decision that led to this entire sequence was the choice to stop tracking after wounding the bear in the initial encounter. A snowstorm is a legitimate obstacle, but the assumption that a wounded bear had gone to die without confirmation removed the community's ability to act before the animal's hunger and injury drove it to attack. A wounded large predator is more dangerous than a healthy one. Tactical error at the river. The guards at the barricade wounded Kesakake a second time, but did not pursue to confirm the kill. Each wounding that failed to stop the animal raised the danger level for the next encounter and likely increased the bear's aggression. Effective action. Mr. Yamamoto's decision to approach alone and quietly to within 60 feet, rather than conducting a large, loud group search, was the action that ended the incident. He placed both shots on a stationary target at a range where the .30 caliber class rifle he was carrying was fully effective. Practical takeaway. A wounded predator is not a neutralized predator. If you wound a large, dangerous animal and lose the track, for any reason, you have created a more dangerous version of the original problem. The obligation to find and confirm the kill is not optional. Every death in this sequence traces back to a decision to stop tracking before the bear was confirmed dead.
Hey, we need your help. If you've loved these terrifying true stories so far, we need your help to keep sharing them and create new episodes every week. Please grab your phone, scan the QR code now, and tap the subscribe button that opens on your screen.